Ladies and gentlemen, today I have the pleasure to welcome Professor Raul Dorantes. Raul Dorantes is originally from Mexico. He is a teacher, a writer, a playwright, and an activist. And today I have the pleasure to welcome him under the Human Rights Tree to talk about Mexico. Mr. Professor Raul, thank you very much for joining me under the Human Rights Tree.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Alpha. It is a pleasure.
All right. Azawai, how are you doing?
Fine, fine. Happy
Happy.
for the results of the Mexican elections, of course.
Yes, your country made history by electing the first female president. Can you tell us the history of that election? What happened
Well,
behind that victory?
well, it happened right after 200 years of the independence. We have had many male presidents throughout history since 1821, when we achieved independence from Spain. And it is the first time that we are going to have a Mexican female president, a presidenta. So, and I think it was very clear the message of the electorate that they wanted somebody, not only a woman, but a woman like Claudia, a progressive candidate who is going to follow the plan of the current president Andres Manuel López Obrador.
I see. I would love to know more about her. But before I mm, talk about Miss, I think is Dr. Claudia, um, can you tell us a little bit about Mexico political and geographic history for the people who don't know Mexico very well?
Well, we know that Mexico is down the border of the United States. It was a colony of Spain for 300 years, since 1821, when the Aztec Empire fell into the power of the King of Spain. And from there on, there were 300 years that we interrelated with Europeans and also Africans that were brought to Mexico. So we can talk about a three culture country. We are indigenous on one side, Europeans and Africans. Many times we don't see that African side of Mexican culture, but it is there in the music, in the food, uh, in every aspect of the Mexican culture. So, but we don't talk about it. I think only in recent times we are starting to accept the Afro descendants, Mexican Afro descendants. So, after 300 years of colonialism, uh, that was brutal, but that made Mexico what it became by 1821. We achieved independence, and in the last 200 years, the Mexican presidents call it that we have had four transformations. That's what he called the 4T, four transformations. The first one was the independence. The second was called the reform, in which it became more secular, a secular society not controlled by the Catholic Church. The third one was the Mexican Revolution, that had a lot of influence in terms of social issues, rights for the workers, rights for even the democracy. That took place in 1910, the Mexican Revolution, and it is called the first social revolution in the world, I think, before the Soviet Union. And the fourth transformation is what is going on right now. That's what he likes to call it. It is a transformation. He doesn't call it a revolution. He says it is a transformation, a pacific, non-violent transformation. And what does it mean? To go, I would say, from a representative democracy to a more participative democracy. So the president himself holds a press conference every day from Monday to Friday, a 3 hour press conference every day to inform the country, to inform the people, men and women, Mexican people, about the issues like center political and social issues. So we are informed about what is going on a daily basis, and I think that is a part of this fourth transformation. So we can participate in the changes of the country with information. So, and it's also a counterbalance to the mainstream media also. So, Claudia is a part of that movement, a part of that transformation. She was a mayor in Mexico City, and I think she did a very good job, and people liked her, and they said, "Yeah, we want her." There was an internal election into the Morena Party. Morena Party is the party of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and Claudia Sheinbaum, and this Morena Party held an internal um, election to select the candidate for the presidency. And there were 5 men, 1 woman, and she won. She won, and then she said, okay, let's create a program. Many people participated in the program that she is going to take into effect as soon as she becomes the official president.
I see. So, what was the Mexican borders in the time of independence?
Well, the Mexican borders were Mexico was all the way from Nicaragua, what is now Central America, yeah, Nicaragua to Colorado, Utah, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and then there was independence, 1821, and that was a time of many instability, internal instability, and the United States, I think, took advantage of that instability and declared the Monroe Doctrine. I don't know if we are familiar, the Monroe Doctrine that is
Yeah,
called America for the Americans, meaning America, America, the whole continent for the United States. So somehow they began continue the expansion to the west, and it declared a war on Mexico in 1846, and they won. The United States won, and then there were a negotiation, and Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Utah, part of Colorado became a part of the United States. So that meant that's why they have Spanish names, all these states and the towns of those states, and somehow we don't say that we came to the United States, but the United States came to us because there were people already living there, Mexican people living there.
I
Okay,
see.
so yeah, the border became when pushed to the south to the Rio Grande. Somehow we don't call it Rio Grande, we call it Rio Bravo, like a brave river. But it is the same river, and that has become the current border.
I see. During the last election in Mexico, for the first time, a female, Claudia Sheinbaum, was elected. Did you see this happening? And the second question is, who is Claudia Sheinbaum?
Well, to me, it was a big surprise the election in 2018 when Andrés Manuel López Obrador won the presidency. I didn't really expect that, and it was overwhelming. He won with 30 million votes compared to, I would say, 18 million for the next candidate. And it was a big surprise. Like, oh my God, we got it. The left party, Morena, won this election, 2018. And we said, what is he going to do? And I think many people expected that he was going to become just like the previous presidents, that they don't have very good reputation, I would say. And they said he's and many people in the center and the right thought that he was going to follow the steps of the previous president, but he didn't. He continued with his program of what he promised, change. He declared the fourth transformation, and it has been a surprise every day, because I follow the press conference that he has, not every day, but or sometimes half an hour or 1 hour, and yes, he's in a constant dialogue with the Mexican people, and and now with Claudia, it was more expected. It was more and more expected. So she was challenged by a female candidate from the three opposite parties, political parties. One, a Democratic Christian party called PAN, the authoritarian historical party, PRI, and one that was from the left also, the PRD. And those three political parties chose the opposite candidate of Claudia, and the results were very clear. Claudia got 36 million compared to 16 million of Sochi, so more than double. So I would say 2018 was more of a surprise than this year.
Okay, so the act basically, in many ways, she promised, gave promise to the Mexican people that she will continue the previous president programs. What did the previous president did policies the president implemented that are so successful for the Mexican people to decide that they will trust Claudia to continue those programs by electing her as the first female president?
So I would say that for 40 years, up to 2018, we had neoliberal governments, meaning a lot of privatization of education, universities, elementary schools, jails, police, security. Everything was becoming privatized, and we got a few super rich Mexican people, because Mexico is a rich country, and many people poor. 60% of the population became poor, and there was a moment that we had only two options: to come to the United States or to be a part of a criminal industry, the crime. So it was like a difficult, very difficult situation. And it seems that there was no end at the end. There was no end in this tunnel. And and López Obrador had been the voice that led the critique of neoliberalism for decades. I would say 30 years. Out of those 40 years of neoliberalism, he was always like having rallies, demonstrations, and he won in 2006 the election. In 2006, he won the presidential election, and it was stolen. So we said we have to get ready and to win massively, not by a few votes, and we have to prepare. So he founded a new political party, Morena, and with this idea. So uh, right now, what do we see as the new project? Because we are talking about two projects of political and social projects, like the neoliberal project to go back to what we had in 2018, or to retake elements of the welfare state. The welfare state, like creating programs, social programs for the elderly, scholarships for the poor, and to so there are many, you see many young people, they are not coming to the United States anymore. So they stay in Mexico because they are being hired in government programs. Okay, the peasants are receiving help, and he did something very clever. He said, I am going to to be strict about getting taxes, okay, like the taxation of corporations, because there were many corporations and and yeah, corporation basically and rich people that didn't pay taxes for decades, that didn't pay taxes, they just didn't care. And he said, no, now we have to be strict. You are going to pay taxes, and that's the money that we are getting in order to pay for the social programs. So that was new.
I think based on what you're saying that since the days of independence, that Mexico basically knew a system that was there that basically benefited only a minority. However, with the this the president, he was able to break through that cycle. What specifically did you? How was it able to do that? Because it's quite in many countries there are a system that is established and is very challenging to break through that system. But based on what you're saying, he was able at least to break the cycle and implement his program. What did he specifically did to come to that result?
Well, let me tell you something about Latin America as a region. Latin America had a wave of progressive governments in the first decade of this century. Venezuela and Brazil with Lula, Argentina, and then somehow those progressive governments started to lose power, and it seems that Latin America was going to the right. And with the election of Lopez Obrador, we started a new wave of progressive governments in Latin America. Now we have Gustavo Petro in Colombia. We have in Guatemala, very progressive governments. Lula is back in Brazil. And of course, we have a special case in Argentina with Milei that is very to the ultra right, to the right, okay? But I think something that Lopez Obrador learned from the first wave of progressive governments is don't cut the conversation that you started with your electorate. Don't cut it. Continue it every day and make it more participative in every decision, that they make. So in the middle of his presidency of his administration, he said, "Why don't we have a referendum if you want me to continue or not? If I am not doing a good job." And so there was a referendum, and people said, "Yeah, we want you to continue, of course." Yeah, and so there had been more participative experiences in Mexico. And that is a plan of the 4T. There is also a plan that now we are in the process of legislate in order to elect the judges for the Supreme Court, to elect the judges for the judiciary in every level. So people can be more participative. So that is like one thing that is taking place, and people are eager to do it, So he didn't uh, cut ties to the voices that supported him in 2018. He's leaving office at the end of September, and he's saying that's the end to me. Now there is a new generation, Claudia Sheinbaum, and but with the same plan, with the same plan.
But when you look at Mexico, we must acknowledge that the majority of the population are Catholic. And examining the situation of Presidente Claudia, we know her background is Jewish. How can you explain in a country in which the population are um, Catholic choosing a president who is have a Jewish background. Mm.
It is interesting, Alpha, because in Mexico it is not an issue.
Okay.
It is not. It is an issue here that I hear. Well, this is a Catholic country with the Catholic culture, which is true. 85% of the Mexicans are Catholic, not culturally, but also part of the religion. But it is not an issue that she is Jewish. Uh, no, we see her as Mexicans, and there were migrations from many different countries, and somehow they become Mexicans, and we don't see it that way. I think the opposition tried to make it an issue, but they didn't succeed. They didn't succeed in achieving that. Yeah.
Okay. So what are the hope for the Mexican people? What they hope that she will be able to achieve for the future?
So with the she has called the second floor of the fourth transformation, her program. Like Lopez Obrador, AMLO, created the first, or built the first floor of this transformation, and he did many things, like not only in terms of participation of the decision, major decision, but he built he built two airports, very important airports. He created railroads for the southern, the poorest parts of the country. He created many infrastructure. Lopez Obrador, that is very not noticeable. And with Claudia Sheinbaum, she's saying this second floor of the fourth transformation, there is a plan C, she called it. And this plan C, there are 20 reforms, 20 reforms, and that is the plan for the following for the following years. And that means like to elect the judiciary branch, the people, the judges, to elect also the people who are going to organize elections. So we know that they are decent and people who are not corrupt, that people say they are going to be fair. And there are, she is talking about uh, building more trains instead of not many highways, trains to in the whole country, so we can the transportation. There is a whole plan, and of course, she has to deal with the water issue. The water is a big issue in Mexico and in the world. So I that's what I remember right now of this Plan C, uh, how that is the plan. But she's leading this plan, but the idea is that everybody participate somehow, even we as immigrants participate in this process. Yeah.
As you know, I think it's going to be in October when she will be officially uh, the president of Mexico. It's is a history. There will be celebration, but when the celebration is settled, she will be facing many issues. Among them, the immigration issue. Mexico, often when we talk about Mexico, when you come to immigration, the view is Mexican are fleeing their own country and coming to United States. And personally, when I visited Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, in 2008, I stayed in a family that is originally from Lebanon, and I kind of learn a lot because their parents would the Mexican government provide them as asylum for them to move during the Lebanon war to move to Mexico. And your actual president also, her parents were living in Europe and they uh, decided to flee the Nazis and they came to Mexico. So through that process, what I learned that Mexico is not only a country in where the people live, go to the United States, but it's also a country that welcome people from all around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that part of Mexico that welcome political asylum around the world, but in some time the Mexico where the population are always living for better opportunity in America?
So historically, in the last 100 years, Mexico has expelled many migrants, Mexican nationals that have been expelled, especially in the last 40 years of neoliberalism. Now, Mexico, more than becoming to expel its own citizen, it is like a country that many migrants take as a bridge to reach the United States.
Okay.
So, but it has become also a point of destination. Not, there are many people that are not that go to Mexico not thinking that they are going to stay there 2 weeks or 6 months and then jump to the United States. No, there are many that they have in mind to stay in Mexico, and they are like going there to live in Mexico City or in other cities. So that's new. And Claudia has to deal with that, okay? Because um, when it's different than the asylum issue, because in the asylum it is one family, two families here and there, but migration is you are talking about thousands, thousands of people that come from Venezuela or Guatemala or countries in Africa, and somehow you have to provide food, shelter. It is difficult, and I think the government has had many problems with that. The idea of the current government was to go and work and try to solve the causes of migration. And he had a problem. He said, we need $3 billion to create social programs for the countries that are expelling right now immigrants from Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Mexico said, we have this money. The United States, you have to give money also for to create a fund. But it was not successful, that plan. It was not successful because the United States never participated actively in that, in providing money to attend the causes of the migration. So right now, I think Claudia has to come up with a new plan, because the yes, there are many migrants that cross Mexico to reach the United States, and they are vulnerable many times. Okay, they are vulnerable, and but it is going to continue if we don't go and pay attention to the causes of this migration. So it is time to 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 attend, because poverty is the first thing, the inequality. So the issues that we know, yeah, and if not, we are going to keep seeing this. Okay? I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, I think you did. The other question I have following to that is basically to know, I want to get to the source of the whole issue. For instance, we know that Mexico is a huge country and have a lot of resources. And to my surprise, Mexico doesn't have oil, if I'm not mistaken.
no.
But at certain point in your life, you choose to leave the country. Why?
Yeah, it was 19 at the end of 1986, and I thought for a long time that I had come as an adventure to know Chicago, to be like cool in this great country. But no, with time I have thought, no, no, no. If I really pay attention, uh, I am also an immigrant of these neoliberal people that were expelled because of economic reasons. I didn't see myself as a immigrant uh, I saw myself more like an adventurer, and that was a lie. That was a lie. It was a part of the problems, economical problems, that the economic crisis that started in 1982 with the beginning of neoliberalism. Because my family had a small supermarket, and we had to close it because there were problems with the economy. We were eight siblings. And I told my dad that I want to go to Chicago or to the United States, to any country that you have a relative over there. And he immediately said, yes, alone, go with your brother.
Let's see.
Because for him, there was two people less to feed in the house.
Mm.
And he saw us as a way to get resources from the United States. So I came in 1986 at the end, and I found in Chicago, of course, work, but I also found the Chicago Public Libraries. And I started to read in Spanish a lot. I started to watch movies to educate myself. But I could say no, I am a part of that wave of immigrants that came for economic reasons.
So, but if I'm not mistaken, because I know you for a long time, and I even did have the opportunity to visit your family in Tequiscoapan.
Mm.
Can you take us back from your beginning until um, in your decision, basically, to say, I am leaving? Because it's not an easy decision. How was your life in Tequiscoapan growing up as a child, adolescent, into taking a huge decision? I cannot take it. I have to go to the United States.
As
Can
I
you
told
take
you, I
us to
grew
that
up.
journey? Mm.
I grew up in a store, uh, selling cheese, selling meat, selling sodas, selling yogurt, everything. So, and I also went to school. I went to high school, and then I went to the university for 1 year. I wanted to become a lawyer, just like you. Yeah. So I went to the law school for 1 year, and there was a moment that I didn't see myself being working in the tribunals, in the courts. I didn't see myself working there, and I said, well, if I am not going to be a lawyer, what am I going to be? Yeah, so I went back to my parents and I talked to them. You know what? I think we have to find other possibilities for me. And my dad had a cousin living here in Chicago, and that's why it became a possibility for me to come here. So that's why I didn't see myself as an economic immigrant. But no, I was, because we closed the supermarket that we had for 20 years before. So there was an economic reason there.
Okay.
The difference to me was that I came with a visa, a tourist visa, and many immigrants in that time came crossing the desert, or the river, the Rio Grande, and they say, okay, I am an immigrant, undocumented immigrant. So I said to myself, I am not undocumented because I have a visa. Eventually, I became undocumented. So, and I lived without documents for 2 or 3 years. Then I got married and I found a way to get those legal documents. And then, as I said before, I started to continue educating myself through the Chicago Public Libraries and work. And I work and I work and I work. And then there was a moment that I decided to go back to the university, but I was already 35 or something. I said, I need the certificate in order to work teaching Spanish, teaching literature, whatever was needed. So I went back to the university, and I got my my college degree and then the master's in Latin American literature. But so there was a, Alpha, immigrants, we say, I come to this country to work and then to work. And after I work a lot, I'm going to work a little bit more. So it is work and work and work. So there was something in me that said, no, 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 no. I have to combine work and read and to bring the arts and the literature basically into my life. So in a way, it helped me a lot. It helped me a lot, and then I found that there were other immigrants like me from Latin America that were living in Chicago, and so we got together, and we founded a literary magazine in which we publish our poems, our short stories, and then I started to write the plays in Spanish. Everything I have done is in Spanish. So, for to me, it was like a way to give voice to these immigrants. There are many stories that are there that we have to explore, because to me, being an immigrant is an identity. It's an identity very difficult to grasp, because it doesn't have a territory, it doesn't have a language, it doesn't have a national anthem, it doesn't have a flag, but it is an identity, because I say I am a Mexican immigrant. So it is an identity. So what are how do we grasp, how do we define that new identity that we have? So I said, I am Mexican, but I have become an immigrant. And I want to think about it, to go into that definition, that identity. So there are many interesting things were discovered, I would say, in that process.
When you come to your case, what I'm getting through your story is first you felt that you have to leave Mexico to get to come to United States for um, economical reasons. But when you came to United States, you found a field that was very convenient for you to educate yourself. And one of the ways it was like the free libraries in which you can go and find document and educate it yourself. And you did that as well. Um, but when you come to immigration, often in Mexico, Mexican leave their country in the legal way, like you did by obtaining a visa, and other people go in the illegal ways of entry. However, despite having a visa, you overstate your visa and end up in the situation where you will call illegal and court. Um,
Mhm.
when did you come to the United States, and how was um, your journey? Living here, not having papers, and have to go through many challenges. Would you mind share those stories?
No, no, no. The contrary. As I told you, I came with my brother, and we had a plan to work and send money back to our parents, to our siblings. But my brother got married very soon, and so I stayed alone.
So
So
when
there
did you
was
come?
at the late 1986.
Okay.
It was October
Mm.
1986. So there was a lot of time that I was by myself. So one of the critical situations of every immigrant is that somehow he loses his or her community. My community was not here. I came to meet people from Michoacan, from Durango, other states in Mexico that were not very close to. They were Mexican, but they were part of the culture, but I didn't know anybody. So my community was not there, and so I came to value somehow the community. I never had thought about it in my hometown. So of course, there was a lot of loneliness and nostalgia was present all the time, and somehow I had to deal with it, and immigrants they had to deal with that, and and then I came to understand why we create, uh, because we want to recreate the community we had, back in town. So I said, okay, I'm going to stay here in Pilsen, 18th Street, because I feel a little bit a sense of community. So the community is the first thing that we lose when we come here, and it is very painful. It is very painful because that's what makes me be what I am, the community. They remind me that you are Raul, that you are the son of David, the son of Lupe, ta ta ta. So I didn't have that, even to say good morning to anybody that I knew. So it was difficult. It was difficult. So here, something that I, like any other immigrants, I had to create my community. In Mexico, I didn't have to create my community. The community was there for centuries.
Mm.
It was there always. So here it wasn't.
For other immigrant, often we can see it as easy for Mexican because there are a huge Mexican community. So despite that population, why it was a little bit challenging for you?
Yeah. For example, let me tell you this about tortilla. For example, the tortilla for
Okay.
tacos.
Mm.
Tortilla for tacos is something that becomes very, very important here in the United States. In Mexico, of course, it is important, but we don't think about it. It is there, and but here, like in the 1990s, the richest Hispanic person in Chicago was a tortilla producer. In Mexico, it is unthinkable. Like a
Okay.
tortilla
Mm.
is one more of the another empresario, businessman. But here, no, it becomes very important because we see it as a part of an identity.
I see.
It is not only food. It is reminding you that you are still Mexican. It is reminding you,
Okay.
consciously or unconsciously. Okay. And then we say, yeah, we like spicy food. Of course, we like spicy, but it is not an issue in Mexico. Here, it becomes an issue. So you want to, you go to the markets here, the jalapeno section, or the
Identify.
it's big always. It is not that big in Mexico, but here, because everything becomes an identity issue,
I see.
consciously or unconsciously. So when I say what is an immigrant, maybe an immigrant is when you try to prove that you are still what you think you were. You thought you were this Mexican. Now you want to prove that you are still that person. But when you prove, or when you want to prove, that's when the immigrants start to go to the front.
I see. I think there are similar situation among the immigrant because, for instance, if you ask me, I will see myself as a Guinean and Senegalese.
Mm.
I always see myself that way. But when I come to the United States, I am viewed as an African.
Uh-huh.
And I know it's quite a completely different concept. And I feel like you find yourself in the same situation, considering the fact we perceive the Mexican immigrants as a unit, but you as a Mexican national, when you come here, you can differentiate the differences. So, what are the differences among the Mexican community living here uh,
Well, and you're
in
calling,
in in in
you're
Chicago?
calling probably Latino or Hispanic people Mexicans, but if you are from Peru, you are not Mexican. But they say,
Okay,
okay, I am Latino because of Latin America. So
okay,
we share the many cultural aspects. But since we are mestizos, on the eyes of the non-Mexican, everybody that looks Mexican is Mexican. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it could be from Ecuador, it could be from Guatemala, it could be from Colombia. So it becomes an issue for them. It
Mm.
becomes an issue when they take them as Mexicans when they are not Mexican, like you said, you are African, but probably you are from
Different
Senegal.
nationalities. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my case, it was more like they call me Hispanic, and they say Hispanic. What is that? I have never heard that term. And here I came here and they said, well, you are Hispanic in the application, the first application that I fill out. And I said, Hispanic, what is that? Hispanic. Oh, okay, because I speak Spanish. That's why they call
Yeah.
me Hispanic. But it was a new identity, an identity that I understand it, but it doesn't touch my skin.
I
Okay,
see.
an immigrant, yes, for
Mm.
personal reason. I said yes, that I like that identity. Uh, so uh, it is an issue that takes a route, a different route on every person. Okay,
Okay.
like right now, maybe for some people being Hispanic is not a big issue. They like it. I said, yeah, I understand, but I prefer being called Mexican or immigrant. I like immigrant.
I see. I following your story, as you mentioned it, you went to difficult challenges to adapt to a new culture. However, you were able to overcome them and go to school and became a teacher. But in some time, you're trying to um, gather your fellow immigrants, authors from Mexico, who kind of went through the same reality and trying to get inspired from your challenges, from your own community to write. So how that those realities in your community inspire you to write books and play? Why you see the desire of sharing those stories?
Yeah, because I was like finding some some special aspects that were very poetic and literary, like the obsessions that immigrants have with the idea of returning. So we stay here and we are always talking about returning, going back, but we never do it.
Okay.
So we never do it. But only when we die, like in the
Oh,
case of Mexicans and probably
okay.
other Latin American immigrants.
Yeah.
But when people die here, yeah, many ask their families to be taken back.
Yes.
And so it is a big business to open up a funeral home and send people
And
back
sentence.
instead of burying them, which is so practical. But they said no, that is the last card I have to go back. Maybe because they think they were happy there, or we think we were happy there, and we want to be in the place that we were like with our community. And so that obsession we had, I said, it's very unique. And in Mexico, nobody thinks about going back because that is not, they are there. Yeah, but here it is. And so we buy a house, we work a lot, we have children. But this idea of going back is always there in the case of Mexicans. I don't know about other communities. But, and I said, yeah, we are almost one in the 1992, 1.5 million Mexicans here in Chicago, and we don't have a cemetery here. Why? Like the Italians, like the Bohemians, like the Jews, like many other waves of immigrants that came here, and we don't. That's
Mhm.
strange.
Yeah.
So because we are a lot, and so I said, oh my God, that is very interesting to write about it, and I usually. Uh, with my students, Mexican students, I ask them, well, where do you want to rest pass? And they always have a very interesting answer. Always, always, always. Uh,
Oh.
Some people say here, some people say over there, and the reasons why it is always interesting. So
Yeah, you write, you did write many plays, and often your plays talk about immigration, going back the borders. Among the play you wrote, which one translate really that issue?
so immigration is a big issue with many features, legal, or cultural, linguistic, economic. There are many, many things. It's a big topic, immigration, like the route to come. It is always the way to get here. This obsession of going back after we complete the cycle, okay, of life. But immigration is also many context, and I like to explore those contexts, like women in the south side of Chicago, and then I go to the suburbs, and then to the neighborhood, and to explore those uh, yeah, those spaces with their particular uh, issues and problems. Yeah, so sometimes I don't write about Mexican migrants, but immigrants in general,
But
like
which
Puerto Rican, they don't see themselves as immigrants. So if I have a character that is Puerto Rican, I go and I interview Puerto Ricans, and I ask them even to help me with the way uh, to to word the phrase.
I, s- I say, can you cite a title of one of your play that really frame that the problem of immigration?
Yeah, there is one that I like that's called "The Camino a la Ahorita." In English, it was translated as "On the Way to the Now," on the way to the now, and that is about an immigrant that takes literally the same route that he took when he originally came to the United States 30 years before. So
Oh,
he's saying, I am, that's the end. I'm going to die. And now I want to take back the same route. So if he crossed the desert 8 hours, now he's going back 8 hours, taking the Texas, the
that's
desert.
interesting. So
Yeah.
what was the similarity in that journey, leaving Mexico and coming, based on your play, leaving Mexico and taking a route to Chicago and taking that same route? What are the similarities on the route, and were the differences?
Yeah. The big difference is that the person that is going back, the person that is going back is another person. It is another person. In my play, that person who was here 33 years and then is going back in the desert of Texas, he meets a young man and they have a conversation, and he discovers that that young man is himself 30 years ago.
I see.
And so they have a conversation,
Conversation. Hmm.
and like this young man is very different from the one that is going back. So I would say that we cannot go back to the place that we left. That place is here, only here, and it keeps growing and it becomes more beautiful, but over here,
I see.
over here. So
Yeah.
we have to accept somehow that everything is moving or move.
Yeah.
Everything move. You move to
Yeah.
you become American somehow. I became American. I became Peruvian. I became Senegalese because I had a friend
Yeah.
Alpha. Okay, and also the people who stayed in Mexico change.
Yeah, the thing what we learn is life is continually moving. You know,
Mhm.
the image we left back home when we were coming up, that image we always have it in our heart, but to our surprise, when we go back, is not there no more. The town we left. So I feel like the history of your play is your own history. because
Yes.
as a young man you left Tequisquiapan and Tequis, and you came to Chicago. But at certain point in your life, you decided to, you went back to visit your family, if I'm not mistaken. How
Yes.
was your return to Tequis, and what did change? Mm.
Well, everything changed. I went back for the first time after 3 years,
Okay.
and my dad said, why do you talk like that? Why do you speak like that? And I said, what do you mean? Yeah, I don't like the way you use
Accent.
words. And it is because I had lost my accent.
Yeah.
I had lost the accent of my region, and I had friends from different places in Latin America, here in Chicago, and
Mm.
I didn't realize that how linguistically I had changed. My dad noticed it, and he didn't like it. So that first change, I said, "Oh my God, what is he listening? How different I am, or how different I talk now." And then I have been back many times, of course. Like when my mom was alive, I used to go once every year to stay with her, and basically I went to stay with her for 2 weeks, and
Mm.
then I would go back to Chicago. And when she passed, I realized that I was visiting for the first time Mexico City, Yucatan, other places of of Mexico, and I realized that my homeland was my mother.
Yeah.
My homeland was my mother. She was
Mm.
like the connection to the land, to
To the country.
the earth, to the country. Okay, she passed, and now somehow I said I can travel. Okay, and I can travel and go, because I didn't want to be with anybody else. I wanted to be with her.
Okay.
So yes, I don't see myself. Of course, this idea of returning is there. But consciously, when I think about it, I say, yeah, it's fine. Whatever I'm going to rest, I rest. If it is here, it's here.
Okay.
So I
Um,
yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
I wrote a novel like 14 years ago, and it is about that, about the founding of a cemetery, and it is a group of young immigrants, and they say they see that there is no Mexicans or Latino cemetery here, and they say in order to establish a cemetery, we need a tomb, and that tomb should be a product of a sacrifice. Okay? And
Okay.
it starts like a joke, and it becomes like a real. So who is going to inaugurate
What
the?
is the title of that book? Mm.
Oh, that book is called About Foxes and Hedgehogs.
Okay.
It is
Hopefully, in the near future, we can have the opportunity to dive in that book and learn more. When we watch the news, we kind of um, have that impression that in many cases, Mexico is run by gangs, um, and there are a lot of insecurity. So, what do you think this new president can do to provide safety for the Mexican citizen, and what strategy he can come up uh, to deal with the problem of gang and insecurity in Mexico?
as you said, when we hear the news,
Yes.
so the news creates a narrative
Mm.
of insecurity, and it is very political. Uh, there is insecurity here in Chicago, depending on the area, and there are homicides every weekend, every day here too. But somehow we don't hear that much in the news. Okay, in Mexico, it is a part of the mainstream media to create that narrative. Of course, there is violence, but I would say the main issue in Mexico is not violence itself, because you find it everywhere, but impunity. That is the problem we have. Like the judiciary branch doesn't work. That is the problem. And that was the goal of President Lopez Obrador, and he didn't achieve that. Like that was one of the goals, and it was stopped by the opposition parties. And he said, in order to change the judiciary system, we have to reform deeply the judiciary branch. And he said, I cannot do it because I don't have the votes in Congress. And that was also a part of the plan of this past election. We need 2/3 of the congressmen with Morena supporting the reform. And we got them. So we didn't only win the presidency, but the enough votes in Congress and almost in the Senate to change the judiciary system. Because, of course, if there is a criminal, somebody who commits a crime and goes to jail and he has money, he's going to be free.
So
And who is in jail? Well, poor people who doesn't have money to pay for their freedom. And he said, we have to change that. And it was not possible. So that is the big difference that I see with the United States. That I say, well, here somehow it works at some point, but better than Mexico.
so you
So that is probably the most important goal
is
in the
impunity.
following to fight impunity.
So you
Yeah.
believe by electing judges that will resolve the issue, or is a deep problem?
That is a part of the reform to
Okay,
elect the Supreme Court judges. There are 11, and they don't have very good reputation, to tell you the truth. They make a lot of money. They are very privileged people, but they don't do their jobs. So, and when you go to the lower levels, it is not working. It's not working, and it goes to the municipal, to the city police. So everything has to change. So, and that is, I think, you ask before, what is the goal for Claudia Sheinbaum? Probably that is the main one. Okay. Sorry,
I
my
see.
dog is barking. Mhm.
What I learned throughout history, each nation and country face challenges, and I feel like Mexico did face its part of challenges, but in some time Mexico made history by electing its first female president. So, how do you see the future of Mexico with your first female president? Do you see it has a, a light at the end of the tunnel, or what is your view? What is the future you think for Mexico right now?
Well, I would say that we saw the light with Lopez Obrador already, with
Okay.
AMLO
Mm,
already, and we hope that Claudia continues the second floor of the fourth transformation. Yeah, as I said before, probably the most important issue that has to be dealt with is the change of the judiciary. That is the first thing. But of course, yeah, there are many crimes. There is violence yet, but we have to find the way that the judiciary works in every level.
I
Yes.
see. Um,
And continue with the social programs as it has happened in the last 6 years.
I see. Professor Raul Dorantes, thank you very much for joining me on the Human Rights Tree. I know you wrote many books about immigrant, and you wrote also plays and talk about your culture. I would love to have in the near future the opportunity to talk about your books and your view through your play about the immigrant life in United States. But we, I mean, to the end of our interview, and I just want to say thank you very much for joining me on the human right tree.
Thank you very much, Alpha. Thank you
Okay.
very much, and thank you to the audience.
All right. I look forward to having more discussions about Mexico culture in the next our next interview. Again, thank you, and have
Good.
a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.